Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see.
It looks something like this.
What's up everybody and welcome back. This is the FeiyuTech G6 Plus, which is a fairly small gimbal here, which can hold a surprising amount of weight, which allows it to carry a massive range of cameras. And we're going to take a look at that in this video. Alright, first things first, the size of this thing. It's like the size of a cell phone gimbal. For a comparison, here is the Zhiyun Crane 2, which it can carry a lot more stuff, but it's a beast. This here, I believe, is a perfect vlogging gimbal. Nobody wants to haul this big old thing around. It gets heavy, it hurts your arm. This here, however, is hardly any heavier than a GorillaPod or another handheld tripod of sorts, but it can stabilize your footage on most vlogging setups. So let's go check that out. But wait, before we get into the vlogging setups, let's go over a few features with this thing real quick. Alright, let's check out the buttons. We've got a standard joystick for moving the direction of the gimbal itself. We've got a power/mode button, a record button, which lets you wirelessly connect to your camera, your Sony camera, similar to the Crane 2. It's got a little knob on the side. Allows you to zoom and supposedly follow focus, which I couldn't get to work. This knob can also control different directions that the gimbal can tilt, left, right, up, down, side to side. This little toggle switch on the front and also direct the camera to kind of a Dutch tilt style. And then there's a button here, which is my favorite feature of them all. If you double tap it, it takes everything back to center, but if you press and hold it, it kind of locks the gimbal into place and allows you to move very quickly, which also lends to this being a very good vlogging camera. The app does a pretty good job too. You can control the direction that the gimbal is looking with the app. You can change the motor power and speeds. You can also set up the motion time-lapse, or the advanced motion control is what they call it. You can set up the speed there, but you can run the entire advanced time-lapse setup through the gimbal itself. You quadruple tap the mode button, set up the first point, set up the second point, hit the go button, and it'll pan through your points depending on the speed that you set up in the app, which is super helpful for doing a time lapse on the go, get you some moving stuff, set it up quickly. You don't have to fuss with the app unless you want to change the speed at which it moves. FeiyuTech has always seemed to do the moving time lapse better than other gimbal manufacturers that I've seen, and they continue with it here. On to the vlogging setups then. We're going to start out with the most lightweight, that is a GoPro. There are two different mounting options with this camera here. You can use the provided quick release plate, which holds the camera a little bit further out away from this motor here, which allows you to hold heavier cameras and more bulky items. You don't necessarily have to use that with the GoPro though, because it mounts right here. It's got another provided screw like this, which screws right into the bottom of it and allows you to go directly into the bottom of whatever camera you're mounting. So let's balance the GoPro. Okay, so there you go. It's pretty much balanced there. And powering it up, you might be able to see the problem. It gets a little vibraty and it seems to struggle with not enough weight on it with this. So I've got this little 1/4-20 screw with a couple of little adapters on it, and I just screwed this in the bottom over on this side, and it seems to help with the motor noise as well as the kind of shakiness it gets. And I had to do this with both the GoPro as well as the RX100 because they're just not quite heavy enough, but adding just this little counterweight here allowed it to work just fine. So let's go check out the kind of footage that we can get from a GoPro. So these quick examples are going to be a little less than cinematic. This is with the GoPro, if you can't tell, with the field of view as well as the sound quality. Don't have a lav mic on, sorry about that. But one of my favorite things about this gimbal is the button on the front. It kind of locks in your movement and speeds up everything. Allows you to move a lot faster like you would while doing a vlog and not get kind of the laggy gimbalness. It kind of disconnects you from your presentation while vlogging. See, that was without holding the button. On to the next one. Next is the RX100, which I have put on the quick release plate here. Looks close enough. And it seems to do a pretty good job with the RX100 on the quick release plate. If you fasten it over here too close to this motor, you get a little bit more shakiness like you did with GoPro. So let's go check it out. All right, now we have got the Sony RX100 in tow. The flip screen is up. It's handling it like a champ. Again, it does a little bit better with the counterweight on this one. The RX100, for some reason, seems a little bit light for this. It gets a little shaky, so definitely recommend a little bit of extra weight added onto this one as well. Next is kind of the staple vlogging setup for Sony, which is the Sony A6500 with the 10 to 18 millimeter f4. And let's go ahead and mount it up, see how it does. All right, it balanced up just fine, but we are getting awfully close to the very end of this adjustment here. Let's power it up and see how it does. Just fine. This is actually, I feel like, the sweet spot for weight. It does perfectly fine with the Rode Video Micro on top as well, which I'm using right now to record, so I can't mount that up in camera here, but I will be using it in this test right now. All right, now we have got the staple Sony vlogging setup, the A6500 plus the 10 to 18 millimeter f4. We can take this in a little bit, get some 18 millimeter close-up action, take it back out to 10. We've got the Rode Video Micro on top with the dead cat on it as well. All right, so now this is really pushing the limits for this thing. This is the A7R2 or the A7 III, which is what you'll see my test with. But we'll balance up the A7R2 for you guys so you guys can see that it does in fact work with the Sigma 16mm f4. And this is a dense little lens. I don't know if any of you guys have it. It's a phenomenal lens. So for this one, we're absolutely maxed out on this adjustment. We're absolutely maxed out on this adjustment. And we're pretty close to maxing out on the vertical adjustment. When you put the mic on top, you do max that one out as well. But as you can see, it is actually pretty well balanced here and does just a fine job. It is still a little nose heavy when you tilt it over to the side, but we're maxed out on that adjustment, so we're just gonna have to see how it goes. Let's power this thing up. Now, with the heavier cameras, there's actually less motor noise than with the lighter cameras, which is kind of interesting. You would kind of think it's the opposite of that, but it seems to handle this thing just fine, and let's go check it out. All right, now we have got the Sony A7 III with the Sigma 16mm f1.4 and the Rode Video Micro on top of that. This is like the glorious blurry background vlogging setup. I am running it at a 1.2 times zoom just to get rid of any vignetting, but this is the kind of image quality you can expect and some nice smooth handling thanks to this gimbal. And we got the quick motion here pretty much. I think it works even better with the heavier camera compared to the GoPro, and seems to do a really good job. That doesn't take away from the fact that this lens and camera is still a little bit on the heavy side for vlogging, as I can kind of feel it in my shoulder. All right, after seeing that footage, you know you want this lens, and you know you want this gimbal. But let's talk about stuff I don't particularly like about this gimbal. The connection to the camera is wireless, so there's a little bit of latency there when you're trying to zoom in and out. You feel very disconnected from it. I wouldn't use it to do any kind of active zooming in the middle of a shot, more of just to set your zoom, set your focal length, and then shoot from there, because it's just not that great. The quick release plate I have a complaint with. There is almost no clearance at all. Actually, I'm running into it right now. Between the screw for tightening your plate and look at that, there's no room there. This screw constantly bangs into this when you're trying to mount and dismount the camera. It's just an aggravation when you're trying to get stuff on and off of the gimbal. I would argue that they put too many adjustments on this. The tilt here, left and right, tilts the camera left and right, and you can pretty easily bump that, knock your camera out of tilt, and then your horizon's crooked. Fortunately, a quick double tap of the button there resets your camera and you're good to go. But it's just a little bit of an aggravation. You definitely need to keep that in mind when shooting. This knob is set to gimbal control. You can get to bumping it with your hand and your gimbal does all kinds of crazy things. Again, knocks it out of whack and you need to reset it, or tilts it up or down. You don't realize it, but you're like trying to chase the gimbal up as it's going further and further away from you. You don't realize that you're rolling this knob right here. I don't know if I have any other complaints. That's a fairly short list of complaints. What about things that I particularly like about this gimbal? The quick lock-on mode here. The battery life is pretty good. The tripod is nice and big. The adjustment and lock controls are nice and simple, easy to work with. It's lightweight, very lightweight. And the final big pro for this gimbal here is the price. You can carry all of this vlogging equipment, professional shooting equipment, what am I talking about? And for this low price of $270. Compare that with the nearly $700 of this beast, and you've got something that is a very tempting offer. Again, links in the description. Help support this channel. If you purchase one of these gimbals, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So we're gonna wrap this video up with some nice nighttime shots of the A7 III on this gimbal here. And if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.